Okay, good morning. Happy July. I'm Sunnyvale Mayor Larry Klein. Thank you for joining me again this week at our early start time. Uh, people say that they really appreciate these meetings with the mayor, and I'm happy to do them. Hope everyone's staying well. This is our 68th installment of my weekly virtual office hour address. We're now 473 days since the March 16th, 2020 county health order started the shelter in place and an attempt to slow that spread of COVID-19. And, you know, a lot's happened, a lot continues to happen. More than a year ago, I converted my weekly coffee shop hours into live stream addresses and hadn't missed a week since. Of course, now I kind of do both. So I start my morning with a quick live stream address and then move to Murphy Avenue. So if you drop by Bean Scene on Murphy Avenue, you'll normally see me there Friday mornings unless I have other meetings to go to. But people, continue to say that they like hearing from their mayor every week. This weekly session is really good because it allows me to kind of reflect on what's happened in the last few weeks, and then just gives me a chance to provide you some updates, answer some of your questions, and give you some general words of encouragement as lives continue to change, and probably to a larger group than who would normally show up at a coffee shop. So thank you for allowing me to continue to work for you, to represent Sunnyvale. I hope everyone's doing well, staying safe, and enjoying the summer. So luckily, the Bay Area has been, I'll say, blessed with relatively normal temperatures this week, as opposed to looking at some of the areas south and north of us on the West Coast, where it's been a heat wave to say the least. So. And as I talked about before, every week I'll be changing my background, and these are Sunnyvale artists that want to be highlighted. So this week's background is called Blue Blocks, and it's by Andrea Catura. So if you want to purchase this piece of art, just reach out to me and I'll put you in contact with that artist. So let's go ahead and get started on what's happened at the federal, state, county, and city level over the last 2 weeks. You know, um, Last Wednesday, the California Secretary of State confirmed that the effort for recalling Governor Newsom had enough signatures to trigger the election, and that was, uh, after the deadline was met. Then there was a 30-day period to request for people to request their signatures be removed from that petition. And so that lasted from April 26th through June 8th, and 43 signatures were withdrawn. So there's still, a large number of people who had signed that petition, and now and then after that, uh, the Department of Finance had 30 days to complete calculations to figure out how much it was going to cost to run a special election, and then the date could be set. So uh, that was, and it was they had 30 days. Definitely, the governor wants this to move as quickly as possible while things are looking good, while the money is flowing, and hopefully new variants really shut down the state. And then last Thursday, President Biden announced a bipartisan agreement for the infrastructure bill, and that's traditional infrastructure, roads, bridges, ports, waterways, and broadband. And there's, a second bill that is looking at reconciliation, but that's kind of a backup agreement. I think, the main bill, I'll say, traditional infrastructure bill, has bipartisan support. So I haven't really read through that final bill. It's been a busy week to say the least, but it's supposed to have at least one item for Sunnyvale, and that's partially funding the Evelyn Avenue multi-use trail project. And so that project would ultimately build a new pedestrian and bike path along Evelyn Avenue from our Caltrain station to the border, to Mountain View Sunnyvale border, and then Mountain View would build a similar construction going from their Caltrain station. So it would connect two downtowns, and it would also connect two Caltrain stations, which is actually very positive. So that if people miss a train, or and we're talking about the whole baby bullet thing right now. I'm doing a certain amount of advocacy to make sure that Sunnyvale gets baby bullets coming south in the mornings and going north in the evenings, which we didn't have pre-pandemic. So that was being held up until we had electrification, and we know that electrification has been postponed for at least another 2 years. It's supposed to be 2022, and now it's 2024. But that infrastructure would actually provide a good kind of off-street safe environment for bikers, runners, walkers, people pushing baby carriages. And I think that it'll be much like a Stevens Creek Trail, except next to the train track. So I think it's a positive thing where people could safely do active transportation and not have to deal directly with cars and trucks and everything else. And then last Friday, an agreement was reached for the eviction moratorium at the state legislature, and then on Monday the governor signed that legislation into reality. And so AB 832 extends the current eviction moratorium through September 30th, 2021. But this is basically, it's a huge step forward for working families, for small mom and pop landlords that have been without income. And this allows a little more time for them to kind of recoup those funds. So I think it's positive. There's several provisions that were, I think, really important to both tenants and the landlords. Most importantly is a streamlined application process. So there's been tons of issues with the current process. This has been in place, but there are people that have applied back in February and March, and they're still waiting for money. And so this is hopefully going to fix that from a timing standpoint, and from a process standpoint. And then, of course, reimbursement is also increased to cover 100% for both the rent that's past due and prospective payments for both tenants and landlords for the next few months. For those that have already applied and received funds, they will automatically get additional funds to cover 100% of the rent owed. So all that's positive. This is what happens when the federal government gives an influx of money into the state legislature or into the state. And so this is one of the things that California is doing, trying to prevent that eviction tsunami that conceivably is happening, that was going to happen in July, most likely. We'll see if how much things are back to normal, and whether or not people can get back to jobs and be into some sort of normal in October. But the bill also allows tenants to receive the full amount due if the landlord doesn't want to participate in the program, and this helps them not carry that consumer debt. It also allows rental assistance payments directly to the landlords in situations where the tenant has actually moved to a new place but still owes rent. And I think this longer time frame for rental assistance funds will allow a lot more people to get to apply and get some of that debt cleared out, whether or not that's from the renters, or whether or not it's landlords that thought that they would never be able to get this money. But it also doesn't put a bad, it helps renters not have a negative impact on their credit because of rental debt. So that COVID rental debt and all the civil cases that might have been there kind of go away. So all that's a very positive thing for the rental market, as well as for renters, for landlords that are trying to get by. Last weekend was the last weekend of Pride weekend, and so there were, I'll say a lot of events here in Sunnyvale and around the Bay Area. People trying to get out and celebrate. I think I had more events in the last weekend than I've had in the last 3 months. So it was kind of interesting from that standpoint, but it was good to see people, to hug people, to see people's faces outside and kind of enjoy the good weather. So hopefully you enjoyed last weekend and we'll be enjoying this weekend too. On Monday, and this is more recall stuff. It's kind of recall heavy this week. Governor Newsom sued the Secretary of State in an effort to add his party affiliation on the state's upcoming recall election ballot. Uh, his attorneys, his team made a mistake when they were filing for the election last year, or filing for the recall election. And so, Newsom wants to require all recall ballots to include that, you know, he is the Democratic candidate. So basically have Newsom's name next to Democrat. Uh, However, the the uh, the Secretary of no Secretary of State, yeah. So the Secretary of State Weber uh, declined in last month because she said it's her ministerial duty to accept timely filed documents. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. It's going into the courts. That being said, the governor filed all the paperwork last year and didn't file it correctly, and then just try and it took them until June of this year to kind of notice that they had made that mistake. Uh, Basically left his party affiliation unlisted, and I don't know if that was strategy or not. But at this point, we'll see what the courts say. But most people know that he's our Democratic uh, governor. That being said, it's kind of interesting that his party affiliation won't be listed on the recall ballot, the way things are right now. And then Tuesday night, council had another long meeting, our last meeting before the beginning of the new fiscal year, which started yesterday. And so there's always a good number of items on that meeting. We had 9 items on the agenda and about 15 consent items. We started with a special order of the day declaring July as Parks and Recreation Month. So, this is the perfect time to get out and enjoy your parks. And over the last year, we've actually had more people enjoying our park facilities than ever before, getting out of their homes, wanting to, being cooped up for so long because of COVID. Uh, People really have been out walking, enjoying whatever facilities are in everybody's parks. And so July is Parks and Recreation Month. And it encompasses, not only what happens in our parks, but also talks about what happens with our library, our Hands on the Arts program, all the different events that our park staff and library staff put together on a yearly basis. So if you're out, definitely thank those great city staff that are managing our parks, and thank our librarians, thank our city staff, because I think they provide a lot of those services every year. And then we had, from our long list of items, we reviewed adopting an emergency ordinance to suspend evictions for non-payment of rent for residential tenants because of COVID-19. This was put on our agenda because the state waited till almost the last minute to figure out what they were going to do. I've been doing a lot of advocacy over the last month, trying to, say this shouldn't be on a city by city basis. 2 weeks or about a week and a half ago, Mountain View did something, San Jose did something, and they all did slight tweaks on what those are. But it's, to me, it's not, shouldn't be done at a city level. it should be done either at a county level or a state level to make sure that there's some kind of equality and normality to what's there. And the state was the best one to do it because they actually had funds to help kind of buffer that, you know, as opposed to trying to do something at a city level at the last minute was, you know, pretty difficult. And even then it was how we would have extended that from a legal standpoint. Um, pardon me. We also we introduced an ordinance to change our below market rate ownership housing ordinance. And this is the inclusionary housing program that the city's had for many years. So it increases that for sale. So for condos, for the percentage required in all the condos being built from 12.5 to 15%. And so a little history behind that, you know, our below market rate requirements for um, for condos was set to 10% in the 1980s. In 2003, just before I joined the Planning Commission, it was raised to 12.5%. So 12.5% of every group of condos built above 8 condos were required to be below market. So it's based upon the annual income, the average annual income. So it's 80% to 100% of the average medium income for the Bay Area. And you know, and ultimately we at that point in 2003 we had 12.5% for condos and 15% for apartments. Soon after that, there was a lawsuit that basically said we couldn't put that same restriction on apartments. In the interim years, about 2.5 years ago, that was finally changed from a state ballot measure, and so that finally moved forward. We were able to reinstate that apartment inclusionary requirement, and I've been pushing for probably, you know, about more than 10 years, almost 15 years, when I was still on the Planning Commission back in 08, 09. I was pushing to like, okay, let's move it, you know, make them both the same. Make it, you know, 12.5%, make it 15% for below market rate for sale, and then 15% for apartments. And it's taken a while. We finally added it as part of our housing strategy study issue that we started a few years ago. That came back to council, and one of the high priority things from getting implementing a housing strategy and improving it was increasing that percentage. So it's moved to 15% as of Tuesday night, and that also has a 30-year deed restriction. So it's not like someone who qualifies to pay, ultimately, an example, pay $400,000 for a $1 million condo. If they sell it within 30 years, a new deed restriction of 30 years is set up. So it's an ongoing thing. If they keep it for 30 years, so if they live there for 30 years, at that point they can actually recoup full equity in that. If they sell it within that 30 years, there is an increase, but it goes up to whatever the new kind of AMI, or basically the average medium income qualifications would be at that point for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom condo. So it keeps it that if they keep it for a long time, conceivably, and live there for a long time, they actually can qualify from that standpoint. And then we also appointed our applicants for the redistricting commission. So we appointed 7 primary members and 6 alternates, and from a pool of about 22 applicants from around the city that applied. And we had a really great mix of people who wanted to be on our redistricting commission. And so I think it was very positive from that standpoint that it was a difficult decision in a few places, but it was actually good and a little long because we actually have to do voice votes. So for all of the different members. So what normally would have been, you know, fill out a sheet of paper on whether or not you vote yes or abstain for a specific applicant. We actually had to go around and around for all the council members to vote on all 22 members. So it took a little while, and then kind of to narrow that down to the 7 primaries and then the six alternates. But I think we have a really good group. And for those that weren't able to make it, I think, hopefully they will also get involved in the city. There's lots of opportunity from that standpoint. And then on Thursday, so yesterday, Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis, I always think that's a great name. Kounalakis set the date for the recall election, so it's recall heavy this week. It will be September 14th. So that sets off, we'll say, a furious 10-week burst of campaigning through California this summer, when a lot of people will be on vacation. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how well this is received. But expect the airwaves to be filled with ads, and the number of mailers that you're going to get, either for the recall or against the recall, I think will be quite a bit. But at least it's only 10 weeks, so it'll be, it kicks off that 10 weeks, and hopefully this won't be too bad. But looking back at the last recall election in 2003, it'll be interesting to see how things go. It's like, as much as I do think that the whole recall process is crazy to a certain degree, it is. And the governor's been doing a great job under a difficult time. He definitely has made some missteps, the French Laundry incident, and EDD, and I think ultimately it's a difficult time because of possible fire issues coming up, in fire issues, brownouts and rolling blackouts that we might have. Water restrictions, all those, are always seen as, the governor's fault. So we'll see, much like, anything that happens, good or bad, but mainly whenever there's something bad in the city, it's usually the mayor's fault. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to the weekly numbers as far as COVID testing and vaccinations. Nationally, cases and hospitalizations are still low, although there's been a slight uptick on the number of new cases. We now have about 33.5 million cases, so another 100,000 cases in the last week. From a vaccination standpoint, we have 181 million people vaccinated with at least one dose, which is about 66, about 2/3 of all adults have at least that one dose, and 58% of adults are fully vaccinated. So all that's positive as we go into the weekends of barbecues and parties and picnics. I think it'll be a little bit safer. Deaths are still, we passed 602,000 deaths, over 1,000 in the last week due to COVID. And then from a California standpoint, we've had about 3.7 million positive cases. That's upticked to about 1,500 cases a day now. Still, it's very low from a national standpoint, especially per capita, but we have seen that uptick to a certain degree. And we've had over 63,000 fatalities. But on a positive note, we've had 41.7 million vaccines administered, about 800,000 in the last week. And then from a state standpoint, we're still about number 12 on states with residents that have received at least one dose. So that's about 58%, 58.8% of our population to be exact. And we're still 18th on states with residents that are fully vaccinated, with about 49.8%. So we still have a ways to go, but definitely things are looking better. From a county standpoint, the number of cases continues to trend downward. We've had just over 2,200 deaths about, additional 15 deaths in the last week, so 2201 as far as the number of deaths. But we've had 81.6% of the county age 12 and over, and it's even better when you start looking at just adult. But 81% of the county, almost 82% of the county, age 12 and older that have at least one dose, and 74.8% of those 12 and older are fully vaccinated. So, all that's fantastic. The more people vaccinated, the safer it is for people to congregate and be out and doing what they would like to do and enjoying their summer. I continue to do a lot of advocating on our city's behalf. At the county level, I can still continue discussions with county health and our county supervisors. As far as testing, you can go to sccfreetest.org, and if you think you've been exposed, definitely go get tested. We're not having pop-up test sites at Murphy Park or pop-up vaccination sites at Murphy Park anymore. So that's been halted. Mainly, not that many people are showing up. But as far as being vaccinated, we did have the El Camino Health site, and that was kind of a partnership between the city and LinkedIn to provide a vaccination site on Maud Avenue, right near Mary. They did close that last Friday, so they're still providing vaccinations at their main hospitals, so their hospital sites. So if you need to get vaccinated, if you didn't get a chance, that's one place you can go. The drop-in and sites, that site on Maud is now closed. The city is also helping. So if if you're a senior that hasn't been vaccinated or know of somebody who hasn't been vaccinated, there are care managers at our senior center that are assisting seniors to set up vaccination appointments. And these are for homebound people. And so the county actually has an in-home vaccination service. So they're going directly to people's homes to get back if they want to get vaccinated. So if you want help, you can talk to our care managers at the senior center at 408-730-7360. And the county has lots of drop-in vaccination sites around the county, not as many as they had before. The one at Levi Stadium closed, but there's still clinics with no appointments required. And I'm currently working with the county to have a pop-up that will be in conjunction with music on Murphy Avenue. So this should be announced later this month. We're hoping to have, it in conjunction with all the live music on Murphy, either on Wednesday and Thursday night, with kind of the jazz, the DJ playing for the rest of July, or the Wednesday night rock and the Saturday night jazz that'll be opening up on Murphy Avenue every week in August. So hopefully, we'll have that vaccination van on Murphy Avenue or on the City Line parking lot, somewhere right there, coming in August or later this month. Let's go ahead and announce some upcoming events. Sunday, of course, is July 4th, so please have a safe weekend. Please have a designated driver if you'll be drinking, and don't use fireworks. If you want fireworks, Great America will have fireworks Sunday night at 8:45 p.m. And I know we can normally, a lot of our residents can hear those fireworks on when they're at Great America. There won't be fireworks at Shoreline this year, but there will be fireworks at Gilroy and Morgan Hill if you want to go that far. I think pretty much all on that same night. But 8:45 p.m. Sunday night is when the fireworks are. Our next city council meeting is Tuesday, July 13th, and there's multiple things on the item, but the biggest thing will be another portion of our housing strategy implementation, and this is the mobile home park memorandum of understanding between the residents and the landlords of the mobile home park. And so from that standpoint, Um, I think, I've heard some good things that the stakeholders have continued their negotiations. They've reached pretty much an agreement, and we'll see what that is when that comes back to us at our July 13th meeting. One of the other things is our boards and commissions. So our boards and commissions, and this is on a quarterly basis, we're currently taking applications for our boards and commissions. Those are taken on a year-round basis. Every quarter we always have a few open positions for people that have either resigned or been term limited. We actually had at least one person that we appointed that realized that the commitment was more than what they thought it was going to be. But right now we have, yet another boards and commissions. You can go to our sunnyvale.ca.gov and search for boards and commissions and find out where to get the application. But the applications are due August 6th, the Friday, August 6th. So if you're considering to get more involved in our city. Let's go ahead and get to our weekly questions. Maureen asked, is there anything you can do to stop people setting off fireworks? I will not call the police on people who are not physically hurting other people, but is there no kind of non-police enforcement that could be done? Ultimately, sorry, this is public safety. Calling public safety is the only option to a certain degree. And, as a reminder, if you're going to call public safety for fireworks, do not call 911 to report fireworks. 911 is for life-threatening emergencies. But to report fireworks in Sunnyvale, you can call the non-emergency number at 408-730-7180. And, don't call if you're just hearing fireworks, but in order to dispatch officers, you'll need to provide, basically an actual location of an incident where you are seeing fireworks, or that that they're currently going off, not just, oh, I heard fireworks, they're somewhere in my neighborhood. And I understand, people are like, I don't like that, but it's it's difficult. And I understand many people are not following, the no fireworks law, and how frustrating it is for everyone. And aside from stressing out our pets and our residents with conceivably PTSD, it has a big issue with causing serious injuries. It's not just the injuries to the people who are setting off the fireworks, but potentially setting off fires. And so there are fines, and this is the whole thing of our public safety officers are the people that have to investigate and issue those fines. So that's been an issue for the last few weeks. I've already heard fireworks start to be set off, but it'll only get worse this weekend. But what you need to do if you know where they're being set off is basically inform our Sunnyvale Public Safety Non-Emergency at 730-7180. And that's it's been difficult. People should just enjoy the Great America fireworks. You don't even have to be inside the park to enjoy them. You can see them, a lot of them, just from Sunnyvale, depending upon where you are. And then Rachel asked, is Sunnyvale ever going to have a good shopping center or mall again with popular stores, not just hair and nail salons? So much shopping is done on, so I understand, I've heard this from a lot of people, we want more retail. We want more retail in the city, and the problem is, a lot of shopping is now done online. So a lot of the big box stores are closing, and reducing their footprints, reducing wherever they are. That was the big thing about Macy's. Macy's closed about 2 years before their lease was up. And that was because they didn't see as much money that they were wanting to see. And a lot of the use of that store was just doing online returns, people purchasing online and then taking it to the store to return it. And so yes, there were people that were purchasing there, but it's not as easy. But ultimately there will be specialty stores at City Line. I've been talking with them, and they're in negotiations with multiple, clothes or shoes, cookware stores. So there will be things as far as that's concerned. Ulta Beauty, which is providing cosmetics and skincare items. They'll be opening up later this month. REI will be opening up in the fall at the old Toys R Us. The the old Osh on Hollenbeck, that will be opening up later this month, mainly providing outdoor. So it's now no longer Orchard Supply Hardware, but it's outdoor supply, uh, which will be providing, um, lawn furniture and things, backyard items and things of that nature. So I totally understand. It's attracting, and Sunnyvale really wants to maintain and add to the retail that it has. We have the Target that's downtown, which is fantastic, and ultimately adding some of these smaller stores, I think will add a lot of variety, adding more restaurants there. All that's very positive for our downtown. Um, Cindy asked what will replace Macy's, and so demolition finished this past week. They're now kind of clearing the site before they build underground parking, and then it'll be a seven-story building with retail on the bottom floor. So yet more retail that was being asked for earlier, but uh, retail on the bottom, and then 6 stories of office space above that, and that'll also be broken into two buildings. So it won't be one big building where Macy's is. It'll be broken into two buildings with a big plaza as you extend Francis from the Caltrain station on south. That'll go into kind of Redwood Square. So it'll be, driveway with going down to below ground parking, and then it'll be a big pedestrian plaza leading towards Redwood Square. So, what I've seen is it looks actually pretty good as far as that's concerned from a design standpoint. Evelyn asked, when is the Washington Park Swim Center opening? And that was supposed to happen the first half of July. That's actually been postponed to the second half of July, and there's been, we'll say, delays because of some pool equipment items. So the buildings are going well, but there's some mechanical equipment that has been delayed, and I know that this has been one of the things during COVID is distribution, either things coming from China, from Asia, and then also distribution within the U.S. has been there's been some hiccups here and there, and so they're working on that, trying to get it as open as soon as possible. But that is going forward. Sam asked, we live on Highland Terrace between Sweeggles Park and the new development at the AMD lot. In the past week, our street parking along Indian Wells and Santa Real has been replaced suddenly with no parking bike lane signs. Our community depends on this street parking because the city restricts residents like me from parking in our on-site lot. And so, and I totally understand, part of kind of finishing out that community, finishing out, doing all that industrial residential transition for not just the Fusion site, but, the AMD site, as well as other areas in there that have been converted from old industrial buildings into housing. But part of that was to kind of convert that into a more bikeable community. And so it's not just the AMD site, it's kind of traffic flow and pedestrian and bicycle flow through that whole area. And the intent of the original parking restrictions, and this will be what for all new developments like multi-unit apartments or housing. It's especially for condos. So for a condo community, it's the requirement to make sure that everybody's parking in their garages is number one, and then you know, of the open spaces having only a certain percent that are visitor parking. So making sure that there are places for people who are visiting that site actually have a place to stay. And so that, you know, that complex was built, you know, over 10 years ago. And that restriction of what that percentage is conceivably part of a deed restriction. And and the homeowners association is in charge of making sure that people actually park in their garages, and that's usually where a lot of these issues come from, is people just don't park in their garages and just utilize the open parking within a community. So I you can contact the city manager. I'll say that it most likely is difficult because most of these are planned community that and most people, you know, when new projects are being developed, when new either ownership or apartments are being developed, most uh, residents are saying, you know, don't require as many parking spaces. You know, it's like add more housing, but you know, make it as difficult for people to have cars. And I don't think that's completely right. You know, I think we need to encourage people to bike as much as possible if they can, and that's one of the reasons why we add, you know, bike lanes. And when the AMD campus was finally being converted into housing, part of that was a traffic study for that whole area, trying to create that sense of place, create that safe biking. And so that was done to basically improve pedestrian safety for improve safety for peds and cyclists when they were improving that overall area. So you can always, you know, email the city manager for issues like this. That's city CITYMGR at sunnyvale.ca.gov. And you know, there's other possibilities also that if you want to kind of add parking where you only have single, basically open parking, you might want to consider stackable parking, which has been used several places within the city so far. That you have mechanical lifts that basically create two parking spaces where there are one. And you know, these are all weather. Some are indoors, some are outdoors. But I think that's an option also. That conceivably you can, if you have two cars, or if you have a neighbor, you know, there's ways of utilizing stackable parking also. Let's see. Next question. Yeah, Rosemary and multiple other people ask, what are the plans to keep Murphy Avenue open only to pedestrians? Oh, and Angela asked, what can we do to keep Murphy Avenue closed to car traffic indefinitely? So, so this will be coming back to council in September. And you know, last Tuesday, or maybe it's August, but last Tuesday, you know, over the last few weeks, Palo Alto decided to keep their streets solely open until for pedestrians until September 30th. Mountain View did Castro until beginning of January. Menlo Park extended its closures until January also. It's actually a lot more complex than I originally thought. It's like, oh, it's just closing down the street and designating that it's closed. There's bigger issues like fire and emergency, you know, how that access goes through, street cleaning, other issues as far as that's concerned. So something will be coming back to council in the next month or so, but it will assuming that council approves it, you know, close it for an extended period of time while city staff studies what the implications are and what's needed to be done as far as closing down that street. Uh, Stephen asked, when will the Art and Wine Festival be this year? That will be the first weekend in October, October 2nd and 3rd. Um, David asked, is the city going to take part in the Yellow Whistle campaign? And so, yes, we are. We received a donation of 500 whistles from the Yellow Whistle campaign. And this campaign basically raises awareness for discrimination against Asian Americans and uses kind of the yellow whistles to sound the alarm against anti-Asian hate. Although from that standpoint, it's really a symbol of self-protection and solidarity. So we're making it available to all of our seniors from that standpoint. Whistles are available for pickup at the senior center, and staff will also be distributing the whistles through our senior nutrition program and local nonprofits. So I think that's actually a very positive thing. Nancy asked, do you know if and when local blind hem apricots will be for sale at the community center again this year? We discovered them last year for the first time. Even though we've lived in Sunnyvale for 11 years, we would love to make eating Sunnyvale blinums an annual tradition. So they were being sold at the barn for the last 2 weeks, but early this week the apricots are now being sold from the community center parking lot, and you'll see signs all around the community center when you go by there. And definitely, I haven't made a buy. I'll be making a buy this weekend to pick up some apricots, and they are kind of the beginning of summer for a lot of people, and a lot of good memories for people who lived in our community for years. Jennifer asked, when is there going to be music on Murphy Avenue this summer? As I mentioned earlier, Wednesday night rock starts, and Saturday jazz start the first week of August. So we're just about a month away from having a lot of people on Murphy Avenue enjoying themselves again. Let's go ahead and wrap up. We're getting close to 10 o'clock, and I tried to keep these a little bit shorter than I used to. Actually, yeah, so what are the water restrictions? So we've had water restrictions for years now. After the last drought, we kept most of those restrictions in place. We didn't have fines related to them, though. That was basically asking people to only wash your car if it has if your hose has a spray control, all those sorts of things. So you're just not wasting water on a random basis. Telling people to water their lawns outside of the daytime, not between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. So all those sorts of things. That being said, we will be rolling out the last meeting in July. We'll be rolling out what the drought requirements are, and what the fines are going to be and things of that nature for people that are not following drought restrictions. I think that's it for new questions. Let's go ahead and wrap up. Thanks for joining me again this week. I'm especially proud of Sunnyvale over the last year. The future is still a little uncertain. New issues continue to come up, but your actions make a difference. Get your vaccination if you haven't done that already. Continue to build community and meet your neighbors. There's been that separation, that seclusion for the last year, that people are finally seeing those friendly faces without masks when you're out, and congregating again. The first Tuesday in August is National Night Out, so it's a time for you to have block parties and get to see your neighbors and friends again. But in general, I'm really proud of Sunnyvale residents and all they've done through the pandemic. Sunnyvale will emerge from this pandemic as a stronger community. We're in this together. We'll get through this together. Thanks for listening. Have a great long weekend. Have a great July 4th. And until next week, take care and stay safe. Goodbye.